Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, Maricopa County Sheriff-elect Paul Penzone will join us in studio, and we'll talk about what a new Trump administration means for immigration policy. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Maricopa County will have a new sheriff in office soon. Democrat Paul Penzone handily defeated longtime Republican incumbent Joe Arpaio. Arpaio had been in office for the last 24 years. Here now to talk about his victory and his plans for the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff-elect Paul Penzone. Welcome to Arizona Horizon.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on your win. Why do you think you won?
I think it's a lot of different factors. I think that the community had been tired of a lot of the financial losses. I think we saw a really strong movement by the Latino community who had been negatively impacted for far too long by the sheriff. I think you saw a lot of conservative Republicans who realized, and I shouldn't say realized, but felt comfortable with the thought that policing should not be partisan, that there are men and women that come from different walks of life that are very strong in law enforcement, and that's what's most important. So with the numbers the way that we saw them, it had to have been a lot of factors that came to play.
Conversely, why do you think Arpaio won for so long and is still so beloved by some?
Well, I think he had a very strong message. He was one of the few in law enforcement. Law enforcement traditionally is a relatively cautious environment and community, not as aggressive when it comes to public type demeanor dispositions, where the sheriff gave a very strong voice to law enforcement, and that voice it went from this place where it gave us confidence and strength that you had someone that was out there fighting to keep us safe, to a place where it was too much of a distraction. And I say that respectfully. So I think that his tenure had a lot of good early on, a lot of things that were positive, but it just got off the tracks.
So what do you say now to Arpaio supporters?
I say I hope that you'll give me the opportunity to show you that I'm very strong on enforcing the laws and holding those who work with me as well as myself accountable to those that we serve, which is the voters in this community at large. Law enforcement should be that strong force that gives us that peace, that we know that we're safe, and that if something does occur to us, someone is going to care enough to work hard to catch that criminal who's responsible, and at the same time be invested in the community. And I think over time, if they'll give me the chance to earn that trust and that confidence, that they'll be pleasantly surprised by what we do as an organization, not just me as an individual, but as an organization.
The race, you've mentioned that the deciding, I think in the past you were quoted as saying the deciding factor in this race was public safety and not politics. Explain that.
Well, ultimately, a lot of the things that were going on were distractions, were investigations that were being conducted on issues that truly didn't serve our public safety. There were cases where the children weren't investigated properly. I think the birther issue for a lot of folks became very uncomfortable because we were dedicating resources there, and the taxpayer dollars that were lost. Those dollars try to go to our safety or to education or something positive. And then when you talk about the infusion of federal court monitors because of violations of law, then your organization becomes disrupted. They can't focus every day on the true priorities because they have all these other factors or issues that they have to address. Ultimately, if your eye isn't on the ball at all times when it comes to public safety, then we're not truly invested in public safety as we should be.
And again, you said you're going to work to earn the trust and the confidence of the Maricopa County residents. How are you going to do that?
Well, it's about working to be fundamentally sound, meaning that everything that we do, we kind of I keep telling a lot of folks I want to turn the volume down. A lot of the noise that we've heard has been a distraction. So get back to being fundamentally sound, which means serving those contracted areas and those that are incorporated with a comprehensive policing division when it comes to patrol and investigators and support services. So if they're short on resources, we need to commit to that. The detention centers need to be efficient or not. They're the most expensive in the state, and that comes at a cost to our taxpayers. And then when we talk about other issues like even the court processes or fugitives, which have been somewhat neglected, targeting and apprehending fugitives in this county, the repeat offenders who pose a threat to our safety. So I want to go out there and become this fundamentally sound organization that you know through our actions is sustainable and is an improvement.
You mentioned turning the volume down. Is there, though, some reason at times to turn the volume up? Let the bad guys know you're out there. Let the citizens know you're out there protecting them.
Yeah, and I think that's something I've shown in my career when I worked at Silent Witness. There were often times we spoke about very serious issues, and you worked with me on these, the baseline killer and serial shooter. Criminals in the community need to know that you are going to hunt them down and hold them accountable. and that you're serious about it and you're strong on those issues. So at times when the community needs to understand what is occurring and how they can possibly help us with a crime, that we are talking about public safety, or even at times when we make errors and we address those errors. There are times to speak loudly and speak with strength, but it shouldn't be that you're looking for those opportunities. It should be that the natural process of what goes on in our community dictates the terms on when you're engaging in that manner.
Biggest challenge that you can see facing the department right now?
Overcoming the issues with the federal court monitors that are in the organization right now. And when I say that, I'm not talking as though it's adversarial. We have to meet those standards because it'll make the organization better. We have to be more efficient in getting to that place, because right now the cost to taxpayers continues to increase in the length of time. So I think the number one issue is meeting those expectations, abiding by the court directives and making sure that we adhere to those, and then getting back to a place where we're functional day in, day out with the opportunity to allow those federal court monitors to move from the organization, and that we function with autonomy.
Not only monitors, you have training, anti-bias training, you have cameras as well. Those things are still in place. Is there any indication that they would be leaving sooner now that you have been elected?
I don't know necessarily that things like the cameras, which can be used as tools for benefit in many ways, or the training, because we always want to be progressive, but it's a matter of, are we constantly looking for ways to get out in front of issues, to train on issues that are deficiencies within our own organization, and importantly, culturally. You know, a lot of the challenges that we're seeing are because of these divisions or this misrepresentation relative to unique cultures or even growing cultures in our community. Everyone is part of one community. We have multiple cultures. And the immigration issue, although it's a serious one that we need to address, should never justify racial profiling or civil rights violations. So pieces of that may eventually be no longer necessary. Other pieces should be long-term implementation because they're beneficial.
The other lawsuit involved ID theft laws used to justify workplace raids. Will you be conducting workplace raids?
Not raids, and I think that the raids were excessive. You know, if we have issues where we're investigating crimes such as identity theft and others, we can be responsible in investigating those crimes. But I would describe it as using, you know, a sledgehammer to address something small, you know, like a fly. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful manner, but there are trained detectives and law enforcement professionals who could go to an operating business where they have an issue regarding investigating an identity theft, and with 2 or 3 detectives address that issue. You don't need to send a SWAT team, you don't need to send the media, you don't need to send a tank or any armored vehicles. Use your resources to meet the issue that you are confronting. And don't be irresponsible, and don't be sensational in doing so.
Have you met with the ACLU or heard from the ACLU at all regarding this second lawsuit?
Not this particular lawsuit, but I've always had, you know, a relationship with many of the members within the ACLU and other organizations in the community. That's been a healthy one, where we talk about ways to best serve and to ensure that we're protecting the rights of everyone. So for me, this is not something new. It's just going to be transitional to get back into a place where now I hold a different level of authority to impact those issues.
We talked about immigration raids. Let's talk about some other high-profile things here. Tent City. What happens to Tent City?
It'll be evaluated to see why it's necessary, if it's necessary, the efficiencies or the inefficiencies of it, and the safety, most importantly, and then make the determination as we look down the road 2, 3, 4 years and make projections on inmate population, other factors. Do we have the housing capacity to properly address that? And if for some reason we have to keep Tent City, we need to make it a more functional, safe environment. My hope is that it's not necessary, that we can house everyone indoors, because I truly believe that a structured housing facility is safer for everyone involved, especially the detention officers. But those are decisions that I need to have information and then make my decision, as opposed to assumptions.
All right, so conditions would be,
Conditions are
at the very least, you would look at.
Absolutely.
Pink underwear.
I laugh not because I think that it's funny. I think that it's just silly that we've gotten to this place where it's such a branding thing for a jail population. And I don't know of any evidence that shows that the color of underwear changes behavior. So if those underwear come at a cheaper price than white, then I'll consider keeping them because it saves taxpayer dollars. Otherwise, I'm not going to be signing underwear and passing them out or any of those things that my predecessor had a benefit for. I don't see that.
What happens to the posse?
The posse is going to grow. I think the posse is something to get excited about. I want to see it throughout the county. I want to see them acting as a conduit for other agencies to provide services. And I use the examples that, how many times have you turned on the TV and you see a crime scene and the crime tape is around it and the officers are standing on the perimeter to secure that area. I'd love to see that we have a relationship with other agencies that we can send posse members out to relieve them. They can go back into service and respond to their calls. Education training, like drug education. Right now, heroin addiction is up 1,000% in the last 10 years. So train posse members to go out and speak with parents and young adults and others on ways to find help or to prevent those issues. Gun safety, personal safety. There's so many applications that are positive in nature that I think that posse can still supplement enforcement in appropriate manners, but be this educational force or support force for other agencies and parts of the community.
As far as challenges facing you and the department, what about loyalists to Sheriff Arpaio? You're going to walk into 24 years, most if not all of these employees have worked under one sheriff. You're the new sheriff in town. Loyalty was prized in that department. How are you going to deal with those folks?
Well, there's only one place that anyone wearing a badge should be loyal to, and that is the community they serve. It shouldn't be the person in charge of the organization. I will expect that they're willing to adhere to the direction of the organization as we change course slightly, and that they are respectful of the authority and the chain of command and those other factors, and they'll have a voice, and their voice will be heard and taken into consideration. But when we make decisions as an organization to serve the community, we have to be in concert. So for those that had a personal relationship with the sheriff, that's wonderful. I would expect that. But if there's a division where you no longer are willing to abide by my directive because you feel that that's the only one that you were comfortable with, then it's probably not going to be the right organization for you. And I'll be strong on that. But ultimately, I want an organization that says we serve the community. We wear patches and badges that represent the community we serve, and we have individuals who have been empowered to lead us and will follow their leadership. But our loyalty is to the laws which we have committed to abide by.
You have to be expecting a little bit of that, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And in complete transparency, there's going to be a handful of folks that I bring with me who I have had professional experience with over the years to help me with that transition. Mm-hmm. But I want them to be to be a seamless transition where we're woven with each other, as opposed to replacing bodies or eliminating positions. If you're doing your job well and you're good at what you do, and that you are properly representing your powers, you're fine. If you're not doing your job, then yes, you'll be held accountable.
Have you had any contact with Joe Arpaio?
On election night, we spoke briefly. Yeah.
What'd you say? What'd you hear?
Well, he congratulated me, and I thanked him for his service, and I wished he and his wife the best moving forward. And it was relatively brief. It was a busy night for both of us, but it was very cordial and respectful.
And nothing since then?
No, sir.
Regarding transition, are you expecting to hear anything from him?
No, but I have spoken to Jerry Sheridan, to the executive assistant chief, and we've set the process in place that we can meet. My transition team can meet with the executive staff there and start that. So everyone invested recognizes, for the sake of the organization and the community, that this is succession. And there's no reason for us to be adversarial anymore. The political aspect is behind us, and now we need to work together for positive things, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone.
Last question, when do you take over?
12/01, January 1st, I officially become the sheriff, and I believe they're saying there may be an inauguration on January 4th. It's kind of funny, though, because it's been so long since they've had this position replaced. I think they're working out some kinks.
Yeah, they don't know how to do that anymore.
We're excited to see what happens.
I was lying. That's not the last question.
Okay. You already called it. You don't get another one now.
What is the first order of business?
First order of business is to just get to know the staff and give them the chance to get to know me. In other words, just kind of define who I am and what I stand for, be open to learning and listening, but just change the energy within the room and get people comfortable with us moving forward.
All right. Well, good luck to you.
Congratulations.
And thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it.
No, it's been an honor.
Get the inside scoop on what's happening at Arizona PBS. Become an insider. You'll receive weekly updates on the most anticipated upcoming programs and events. Get the insider delivered to your email inbox. Visit azpbs.org to sign up today.
President-elect Donald Trump made immigration a top platform during his campaign, but what will a Trump presidency mean to immigrants and immigration policy? Joining us now is ASU's Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law professor Evelyn Cruz and immigration attorney Elizabeth Chatham of Osborne Maledon.
Yes.
There we go. Good to have you both here.
Thanks.
Good to see you both
you.
again as well. Impact of a Trump presidency on immigration.
So I've been doing this for 25 years. I've seen both Republican administrations and Democratic administrations. This is a different administration. And therefore, we sort of will see an interesting take because he's trying to apply business interests and the concept in a governmental setting where we have some inconveniences such as the Constitution, procedures, and other regulations as to how much money you can spend on things. My suspicion is that we will definitely see a lot of litigation. We will definitely see a lot of discussions in Congress about budgets because we haven't had a budget. We've been renewing budgets. And therefore, the appropriations bill will dictate to some extent what he can do. What he has now cannot handle the amount of individuals that he wants to process. The courts are backlogged over 3 years. The immigration officers have about 2,000 cases per person. It's just not fiscally possible.
What are you hearing from folks out there? How much fear is out there? How much concern? How much confusion?
I think there's a lot of confusion. I think I'm telling clients, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And the reason I say that is the person that was campaigning and expressing what they wanted to see for the future of immigration is very nativist and restrictionist. It's about securing the border and making a wall and making sure that certain ethnic groups are accounted for and we know their whereabouts at all times. Is that realistic? Is that something that was considered draconian, probably by many individuals, at least by 50% of the country? So in terms of what he campaigned on and what those policies are, and actually what would be implemented and what can be governed by the country might be very different.
Plans to rescind DACA, what happens to Dreamers? I mean, what are you hearing from Dreamers? And if he were to rescind that deferred action program, what happens to these people?
In my opinion, that is the single most important issue regarding immigration right now because it is so unknown. He has the right, he has the authority. It's within his purview to decide what he wants to do as president regarding DACA and DAPA and the application of prosecutorial discretion. So it's something that I think is a big question mark. He did state that he was going to rescind those executive actions by President Obama. In terms of the impact of rescinding DACA, we were discussing how that might be procedurally a little bit more challenging. People who are renewing their DACA are encouraged to continue to do that. They've already disclosed who they are, what their status is, and where they're located. People that are eligible for new applications, I think that's more of a question that they're going to have to weigh the pros and cons for themselves to decide if it makes sense for them to do.
And DACA and DAPA, the parental side of this deferred action program, the impact on mixed families out there. Talk to us about that.
Well, I mean, that's part of the challenge. You have a mixture of individuals in a household and decisions that are impacting one person impact the entire family. So therefore, when you have individuals who are born in the United States, have had their whole entire lives here, but are still in the process of growing up, they need their parents. And yet their parents might be deported, and that creates a danger that you will have disillusioned youth that might not go to high school, might not graduate it. We just celebrated not long ago that we have the largest number of people graduating from high school. Part of it was because DACA gave individuals that desire that, hey, something will happen, and when they come from those mixed families. One out of 4 children is in a mixed family.
Yeah. 60 Minutes interview, Donald Trump said that he plans on deporting or incarcerating 2 to 3 million criminals. Can he do it?
The frame up of incarcerating 3 million criminals create a perception that out of the 11 million, 3 of them are criminals. The definition is a question mark. Even the statistics by ICE put it about 1.8 million people who they would be targeting. Mm-hmm. And that includes not just individuals who have committed criminal crimes, but also immigration violations. Therefore, they have a warrant out for their arrest. And so those are the individuals. If he wants to meet his numbers and actually deport 3 million people, he will have to include in that number individuals who don't have a criminal record but are here illegally.
Forget the numbers. How does deporting those that are criminals, incarcerating those who happen to be criminals, how does that change from existing policy?
It doesn't. I think that the targeted group by this administration, President Obama's administration, it was all about the criminals, the gangs, the people that were affecting public safety. So that's why it's so interesting, because what he campaigned on was this big, beautiful Trump wall that's concrete. But now we're seeing him make statements like it might be a fence, an aluminum fence in some places, or maybe down the road it might just be more of an idea of a wall than a physical wall. So I think that when you're talking about effective immigration policy, if he does surround himself with various different interests and various different groups that are really invested in immigration, businesses, families, educational institutions, faith-based communities, he's going to learn that the best solution for this country, because everybody wants a change, is comprehensive immigration reform.
One of his top advisors is Chris Kobach, author of SB 1070 here in Arizona, even though he's not from Arizona, but he still wrote the thing. He is quoted as saying, "No free pass if you're here illegally."
Yes.
Right, but unfortunately, even though you have no free pass, you still have to have procedures. Last year and the year before, even under the Obama administration, they only deported 70,000 individuals with criminal records. That's because you have to provide a court hearing. We cannot deport someone until they have finished their sentence in jail. There's 185,000 of those. And so those procedures have to be there. There's no shortcuts. You have to provide them. Otherwise, we end up with Operation Wetback from the 50s. And we have hopefully evolved to understand that you can't do that.
I think one thing that's interesting, though, about immigration changes in the future are there's people you need to address who are in this country already, and then there's people who are outside of the United States who want to come in. So that's a very different type of analysis and policy. There's been discussion about both with the Obama administration and the President-elect's administration about increasing screenings and making sure in a variety of ways that we're keeping people out, I guess is the way that is easiest to explain. And that also concerns me, because we do want to encourage reunification of families. We do want to get the top talent in the world here in our country. So if we're going to have restrictions and enhanced screenings, I think that we're going to have to look at a balance. Who are we letting in? What is the procedure? Is it appropriate? And also looking at the people who are already in the United States.
Last question kind of refers to this a little bit here. He says he wants piecemeal reform as opposed to comprehensive reform. Republicans in general want the piecemeal approach as opposed to comprehensive. Thoughts?
We tried both. We debated about whether or not we should have the Dreamers obtain status. I didn't go anywhere with Congress. Part of it goes back to the idea that they want to secure borders, and how you define secure borders has become a no one gets in through this wall. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to do the impossible.
The idea quickly of a piecemeal as opposed to comprehensive. I guess piecemeal is better than nothing, or is it better than nothing?
I think with comprehensive, you're addressing an overall approach to immigration. And when you do piecemeal, you are only trying to kind of address like one small, tiny population. Mm-hmm. And I think a great example is DACA. when DACA was first introduced in 2012, there was a lot of discussion that there would be 2 million out of the 11 million people that would be getting this benefit. But in reality, the statistics are somewhere between 750 and 850,000 that in the 5 years we've had it, that are actually approved for DACA. So it's interesting to see how when you think piecemeal and the amount of people that are going to be impacted, it's really going to end up being far too small than what we really need.
All right, we have to stop you right there. Good discussion. Good to have you both here. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.
And that's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.